Today's podcast is with an international guest, Mike Seeley. We're going to talk about the imposter syndrome. We're going to find out what imposter syndrome is, how imposter syndrome can follow us throughout our entire life, but how we can actually empower ourselves. A lot of what we're talking about is from his book, How Leaders, Learners, and Dreamers Crush Self-Doubt and Unlock True Potential. My first question that I asked Mike was, what was the first or one of the first mind shift changes that he made to help him get started? Before we get into it, I'd like to remind you, if you are a pet owner, please be responsible and have your pets spayed or neutered.
Well, first of all, Chuck, it is great to be here, so thank you for inviting me on the show. Certainly one shift that I had was to be able to move out of what was my comfort zone and shift into the fear zone, and then move from that fear zone straight into the learning zone. Because sometimes you'll get out your comfort zone and you'll jump back in you'll jump straight back when you're a bit worried about, oh, this doesn't feel right. So it's about learning to kind of deal with being in that fear zone and then quickly moving into what's known as the learning zone. And I managed to overcome that. So that was my biggest shift.
Thing where that comfort zone, right? Like you said, we sometimes we know that we have to take that step forward, or maybe it's a lateral movement, but then it's like uncomfortable and I gotta jump right back to what I'm comfortable with. So what's the backstory for you? I mean, how, why, who are you?
Yes. Well, I have quite a long career in management and leadership, which pretty much started at a company, Hewlett Packard, that I joined many moons ago. But I moved into management 2 years after joining as an engineer, as a field service engineer. But then I started to slowly move up the ranks until I got into a senior leadership position. Now, the reason I wrote the book was because I was selected to be on the company's accelerated leadership program at the time. So this was for high performing individuals that had huge potential for the company. And I was selected, probably out of 50 people worldwide, but I was the only one from the UK. So I felt pretty proud of that. But here's the thing, when I eventually got onto the first week of the program, and it's a 12-month program, but the first week is like everybody coming together, getting to know each other, meeting with senior leaders. Well, we had a dinner the very first evening, and I was sat next to the company's group CEO. And I was quite a quiet person back then, a little bit shy, always wary of senior individuals. And I did not know what to say to him, apart from really silly small talk. And every time I opened my mouth, I kept saying to myself, am I saying the right thing? What is he thinking? Is he actually beginning to think, what on earth is this guy doing here? He doesn't sit with this group. And that was my big concern. I just thought that I was out of my depth. Felt I was in the wrong place. The people around me were highly intelligent. That's me comparing myself to them. And that was my biggest imposter syndrome moment. And I came away from that dinner relieved that I was out of that scenario at the time, but really disappointed with myself, because I thought, wow, Mike, you've been selected for this program. And, you're not really living up to that level of expectation that others have seen in you. So that's what eventually drove me to write the book. I didn't write the book immediately. It was many years that I understood about imposter syndrome. I didn't realize that that's what it was at the time. But over a period of time, I learned what it is, and I just decided to improve myself as an individual.
See, that's quite a leap from an engineer into like a role of leadership. Not to say that an engineer isn't a leader, but that seems quite a leap.
Yeah.
I was also wondering, can you explain to us what is an imposter syndrome? What is that?
Yeah, imposter syndrome is really when you are limiting your own self beliefs. You have this level of self doubt within yourselves. You don't think that you are good enough. You have this little voice in your head telling you that you're not good enough, and you're comparing yourself to people who you think are much better than you as well. So I spent a lot of time when I was in leadership meetings amongst big leaders who were big talkers, very confident looking, and I was always shrinking, and I didn't want to be in the spotlight. And it was these messages that were telling me, "No, Mike, you're not good enough to be there." So imposter syndrome is you looking at the reality of your capabilities and the gap that you are placing in between where you believe you are to where you actually are. And it's that gap that provides that level of limiting your doubt, confidence, and giving you that level of imposter syndrome.
That's the one thing about doubt, self doubt. I think we as humans, we often doubt ourselves. We are our own worst critics. We may think that somebody's thinking badly of us. Sometimes they might be right, or you might be right that they are thinking
Yeah,
that. But we tend to put ourselves down more than anyone
we do.
else. So it's,
Yeah.
um,
And,
you know,
it's funny, I just coming back to that dinner back then, whilst I felt that I wasn't good enough to be there, there was no
Mhm.
one in the room that told me that. Everybody was welcoming, everybody I came into contact in was welcoming me and making me feel good. But I don't know why I was telling myself that I wasn't good enough. And that's the key difference. You've got to kind of get over that particular hurdle and make sure that when you're in a room like that, rather than bringing your self doubt into it, you've just got to be thinking, what value am I bringing as I come in? And that's all about, we talk about imposter syndrome, but what it really is, Chuck, it's having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So a fixed
oh,
mindset is where you believe that you're not good enough. You believe that, oh, there's no way I can apply for that job. It's too big for me. Or, rather than having a growth mindset that basically says, yeah, I can do that job. Even if I don't have all the skills today, I know I'll be able to do that job and I'll continue to learn and develop until I have, obtained those skills, and then I can move on from there again. So, yeah, so it's that fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. That's the key difference.
and there's one thing that I firmly believe in, and that is that every single one of us has that potential to do whatever it is that we've been put to do. But like you said, a lot of times that self doubt comes in,
Yeah,
and we create that self doubt. We haven't even done whatever it is that we're tasked
yeah.
to do, but we put that self doubt in our minds right away.
Mm.
Um, I I wish I was a psychiatrist, psychologist, so I could figure that one out, because
Yeah,
I'll do that often myself. So,
yeah.
um,
You know what? The thing is, and I do think that some of it comes from your childhood. Some
mm,
of it comes from, maybe it comes from parents, it may come from teachers. When I was at school, I would have teachers that would tell me, like, I can remember having, we'd have like a careers day as you're kind of getting ready to graduate from high school. In terms of you'd have an interview with a careers advisor or a teacher in terms of understanding, well, what is it that you want to do? And I can remember the saying that I wanted to be an engineer, an electronics engineer. And I was told, no, that's a little bit out of your depth, Mike. Maybe you should think more about working in a factory or something like that. So you already get those little seeds planted inside. You know, um, it was interesting with my parents because they had dreams that I thought were way too big for me. They always, thinking that, oh, you need to become a doctor or a lawyer. It's like, really? which wasn't for me either, you know. So it's interesting that parents tend to have these dreams that are bigger than what they've achieved themselves
Yeah.
versus teachers and maybe friends and people like that will always try and keep you down in a specific lane, as it were. You know, so it's interesting.
That it is interesting how you bring that up. And now let's see. I'm going to put my pretend counseling psychiatrist psychologist hat on because we know that I'm not. But you're right. It seems like that parents tend to, when we're our child, push us in that direction to say, I want you to be better than I have become that way. I want you to be a doctor. Or if they're already a doctor, I want you to be a doctor too,
Yeah,
or whatever it may be. But other people who are maybe your peers or other people of authority, you hear this word often: stop, wait, don't, know. And I think we grow up with,
yeah,
oh, I got to stop. Maybe I can't. Oh, they said don't. And I'm saying this because maybe the peers and um, you know the people of authority to little kids, we need to learn to stop saying those words so often
yeah,
because I think you're right. It probably starts at that early childhood
yeah.
age. We need
And
to
it
be
goes
more
on.
encouraging.
You know, it goes on right through adolescence. You know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there is a lack of encouragement. I also think
Yes.
that sometimes you need to be pushed, and the way I say pushed, that means pushing someone outside of that comfort zone that I mentioned earlier on. You know,
Yeah.
and the positive thing about that is for them to develop and learn, because you know if you're in your comfort zone, you're sitting in a status quo, and that means that there's you know you'll never grow because you are just you know in that level of comfort and complacency that means that you believe that you've reached your limit and you're not going to go any further. But some people are happy with that, believe it or not. Um,
Yeah.
and that's crazy, I think.
Yeah, I do too, and that's just being content.
Yeah,
A lot of times, I mean, people, we we are content with whatever it is that has been given
mm,
to us.
yeah,
You know, I say that given rather than worked for. It's like, oh,
yeah.
okay, this is good enough. Uh, are there any common myths to this mindset stuff? It's
Yeah, there are some common myths. People think it's a soft skill. Some
mm-hmm,
people think it's just fluffy stuff, soft training. Um, and to be honest, I think that the whole mindset stuff is critical to anybody's success. If they really understand it and get to grips with it, you know, they can launch their careers or really go into whatever it is they want to go into by putting their mind to it. And
yeah,
the other thing is, it's not difficult. People think that there's all of these barriers that get placed in your way. And yes, you do have all of these barriers, but having a growth mindset teaches you how to get through those barriers. You know, get over
yeah.
those hurdles, knock all of those obstacles out the way to get to where you want to. If you've got that growth mindset, you will find a way to a solution.
Yes. That's part about being resilient and just pushing through everything. And I think a lot more people need to realize that because you didn't succeed at it, or we'll call it failure, you didn't fail. It was a learning experience, and you try a different route,
Yeah,
try a different method. And it's okay to fail or not succeed the first time. It's part of that growth
yeah,
and having resilience to push through.
yeah. Well, you know, the one thing that I say to people is failure is not the opposite of success. It's a prerequisite of success. You know, because some people might fail and think, "Oh, okay, I'm not going there again."
Right.
But As you quite rightly mentioned, it's always a learning opportunity if you look at it that way. And if you do look
Mhm.
at it that way, you'll look at, well, what do I need to do differently next time? What do I need to start doing, or what do I need to stop doing? If you're continually assess where you've gone wrong and what you can do better next time, you will do better next time. You know, it's just people say you should always practice. The term, if you want to get good at something, you need to give it 10,000 hours of training and sweat and tears and all of those things. Um, well, that's exactly what it is. That is how you actually make these breakthroughs. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And again, this goes for really anything in life, not just business world. Like I said at the very beginning, we're talking about it could be a personal life, it could be a business, it could be a business venture,
mm.
uh, everything. Now, are there any practical tools or steps or anything like that? Any actionable items that people can do to start setting this growth mindset?
Yeah. In my book, and I can quickly run through them. I have
Yeah.
um, near the end of the book my 10 essential tips for achieving a growth mindset, or
Hmm.
achieving and maintaining a growth mindset. And they're very simple things. The first one is be patient, right? These things do take time, but equally, what you have to do is you've got to have that level of focus on what you're really good at. And the things that you're not so good at is where you then take the time to kind of practice more of. But more importantly, is to not be looking at what others are doing or where others are and comparing yourself. Because the minute you're comparing yourself, it's just like if you're a sportsman, right? If you're a basketball player and you want to be a Michael Jordan, but you think, oh, look at how great Michael Jordan is. There is no way that I can be as good as he is. So already you put in those self-limiting beliefs in the way. But many people may not have looked at what Michael Jordan went through to get to where he got to, the failures
Hmm.
that he had. You think about the shots that he's missed, in critical games and things like that, and how it made him feel. But he got back up and practiced and practiced. People only tend to look at the end result. Don't look at the end result. Concentrate on the progress, and then keep moving forward with that. So being patient is the first thing, for sure. The second thing is to, like you say, like, work smart but dream big. And it comes back to what I was saying about Michael Jordan. You know, you have to, if you dream big, but in order to achieve that, to get to where you want to get to, work smart by just incremental achievements, incremental steps that will take you to where you want to get to. That's working smart rather than thinking, I want to be there straight away. And, I want to be there in the next 3 months. I want to be the best player in the world. Incremental steps. Let me concentrate on this skill first. Then once I've mastered that, I'll concentrate on another one. And these are all small steps that you take that will collectively round out your ability in whatever it is that you want to go into. So, God, that's the second one. Being positive is the third thing. Think about, if you have negative thoughts or you have negative experiences, try and turn them into positives. And that's all about thinking, right, I'm going to get better at this, or I'm going to put a plan in place to turn that negativity into something positive. So it's about being positive. Never give up is another one. Believe in yourself is one of the key ones, right? Because if you don't start by believing in yourself, don't expect anybody else to believe in you. So you've got to have that
Yes.
belief in yourself in the first place. And then create a strong network. I always say surround yourself by like-minded people, but by people who are better than you, but by people who are going to encourage you and push you. Because if you're amongst that group of people, you will naturally bring your own level of skill and ability up at a higher level also. So, I used to have this thing when I was in leadership, I always hired people that had skills that I didn't have or had better qualifications that I didn't have because I always knew I can learn from those people,
Right.
you know. So you can do things like that. Um, we spoke about the status
It
quo, and I always say never fall in love with tradition, right? Because tradition is what plants you in a comfort zone. Tradition is what creates a status quo. And with the world moving as fast as it is with technology and everything else, you could find yourself left behind in an instant, if you stick to the
yeah.
status quo. So,
I I like that one, and that's one that I have not heard before. So I like that as much as your second tip about incremental steps and don't look to the finished product, because I'm going to gear this towards this is for everyone in
mm,
the business world and such, but I'm going to gear this really towards the younger generation
everybody, yeah,
because of internet and everything. We see an individual, their success story.
yeah,
We see the one thing, and that's what we strive for, not knowing, like you said, what the likes of Michael Jordan or anybody else went through prior to getting to that position. Um, so I think we have to stop, look, listen, and realize that it took effort
yeah.
and resilience for that person to get there, and that's what it's going to take for
And
us.
everybody has that within them. And one of the most important tips I give to people is read and learn something new every day. And
Mm.
it doesn't have to be reading a book. It could be reading something in a magazine, an article, but learning something every day, even if it's, on a video, because you're constantly developing, a mindset, a positive mindset, but you are developing knowledge, and knowledge is power at the end of the day. So I always say, particularly to younger people, particularly those who have graduated from college and university and think, all of that learning is over now. I don't need to learn anymore. Well, the thing is, that is just the beginning of your learning journey, but you need to continue to learn new things. And I think so that's my biggest out of all the 10 tips that I like to give.
Yeah, and that is so important, to learn something new every day, whatever it is, whatever you can. And I think as far as if you're striving to get someplace or to accomplish something, aside from that resilient, it's still resilience, but just that repeat action of doing something over and over and over,
Yeah,
almost to make it a muscle memory, and you get better and better and better the more you do it. And as you mentioned, there's that 10,000 hour thing that we've all heard about
yeah,
time and time again, and it's so true about putting in the effort and to do it continually, to
yeah,
continually do it.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you're right. It's more than practice. Practice is one thing, but it's just it's that whole being positive about everything. Creating that values that you have, and walking into a room, and rather than thinking I don't belong here, or what can I contribute, just thinking what values am I bringing. Always think that you're
Yeah.
bringing some level of value that maybe others may not have. And you've got to start thinking like that. And if you can continually think like that, you can do anything. I used to be in large meetings, and if I'm honest with you, Chuck, during my early career days, most cases I was the only black leader in the room, and that
Mm.
in itself was something that would really kind of make me think, "Wow, should I really be here?" kind of thing. But I think that what I eventually had to do was, if I wanted to ask a question in a big auditorium, I would never do it because the
Yeah.
minute my hand would start going out, the butterflies in my stomach would start going, and it would just come back down again. But I one day I just decided I don't care. If I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to get up, ask the question. I don't care whether it's a silly question, I'm going to ask it. And that's where I started. I just stuck my hand up one time, and I can remember as they were bringing the microphone down to me, my stomach was going crazy. But you have to learn how to control those things by maybe taking a deep breath first. Because when I was handed the mic, I almost couldn't speak, but then I took a deep breath and then I spoke slowly, and then it just came out clear. And from then, I didn't worry about it. I didn't worry about it.
Yeah.
But you know, these
You
these
know,
these things come with practice.
again, again, I am not the professional, but my, I can't even call it advice, but here's something I think that works. As you were saying, that sometimes people are afraid to ask a question or do something because, one, I think they don't want to stand out.
Mm.
That might be one thing. But I think what helps is you might think, oh, this is a stupid question I'm not going to ask. But I think the way to help get over that, if you want to ask that question, is when you stand up or grab that mic to, first of all, say, I think a lot of people probably are wondering about this. That way,
Yeah,
you might see some people start shaking their head, but you are giving everybody else in the audience who's thinking of that same stupid question the um, not the authority, but you're giving them the permission to
mm.
listen to you, so to speak.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense,
yeah,
but it makes it easier.
yeah. And you know what? It's interesting because most people think that the imposter syndrome and all of that is for ordinary people, but big CEOs suffer from this. I read 2 weeks ago Steph Curry in an article said that he still has imposter syndrome, and most of it for those senior leaders, CEOs standing up and having to make a statement on TV or something. For them, it's like fear of failure. They don't want to say the wrong thing, so they put that amount of pressure not to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And they're worried about it, and they practice and practice, or if it's something that they've got to speak quickly, they may have people around them to give them that level of confidence. But, they could be reading from an auto cue, which makes it easier. But, it just goes to show, though, everybody has this level of imposter syndrome. The most senior people in the world, right down to the ordinary person on the street. We all have it.
Yeah.
And if we acknowledge that we all have it, then we should feel that, oh well, if we all have it, we're all in the same group together. So yeah, it's all about confidence at the time.
100% agree. Yeah. Before folks forget who we are, I'm Chuck. I'm having a conversation with Mike Seeley, and Mike is the author of Mindset Unlocked: How Leaders, Learners, and Dreamers Crush Self-Doubt and Unlock True Potential. Mike, where can folks go to get this book?
Well, this book is on Amazon everywhere, every country on Amazon at the moment. So, yeah, it is there. You can either put that title in, or you can put my name in, and it will come up. I've got a couple of other books that I've written, but that one will definitely come up. It's my favorite one of the three that I've written as well. So,
What's the titles for the other two?
so the other two is the Belonging Shift, and that is more about corporate organizations, how to create a belonging culture within a company. So it's mainly for like HR, DE&I leads or leaders. And then the other one is more for leaders. It's called, I've got it here, Leadership in Action. And I'll show you this book. And it's 50 hacks to unlock potential, drive change to become an inclusive leader. It's a handbook more than anything. And, from just goes from 1 to 50 of things that any leader, the types of behaviors and the things that they should be doing, like having emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, creating
Yeah.
psychological safety, for example, having self-awareness as a leader. So very simple things, and there's lots of little anecdotes and stuff like that that can help them. So they can keep it at their desk or keep it with them, and if they have a quick flick through, if they're traveling or whatever, they can make sure that they're doing some of those regular behaviors that will stand them out as an inclusive leader. So, yeah.
Nice. I'll have to check those out myself. Uh, Before we close out, I want to ask or make a comment, and then I'd like to jump into a few questions. We'll call it the rapid fire
Ooh,
round. But
okay.
so I'm going to throw in a couple of questions there that might throw you off there. Um, but, it's today's conversation, as far as I'm thinking about it, it's, again, it is important for all of us to go beyond our mental blocks, our barriers that we put upon ourselves. And part of that imposter syndrome, we do belong. Whatever position that is that we've been put into or asked, maybe somebody else saw something in us. Believe in that. That means, like you said earlier on, believe in yourself.
Mm.
So that's really important. I think is a lot of times we just don't believe in ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there comes that self-doubt, and then that wall that stops us, that prevents us from doing stuff.
Yeah.
So the comment that I want to make is, we're talking about all of this, and this takes an investment in time, but also I'm putting on that sales pitch right now for you, Mike, is investment in time and investment in oneself, which could also mean that you have to maybe buy a book, buy a course, whatever it is, buy videos. That's all part about trusting and believing in yourself and wanting to advance. And I think that's the other part that a lot of us fall short on. We want to do something,
Yeah.
but a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't want to pay for it. Well, you're paying to further yourself.
Yes.
So just keep that in mind, people. If you have that type of a doubt,
Yeah.
break through it.
It's something I
It's an
preach a lot.
investment in oneself.
Yeah, I preach this a lot because particularly people in the workplace will often think that, well, I'll get all of my training from the company. If I want to further myself, I'll get the company, I'll go on a course that they send me on. But they may not necessarily send you on a course that's specifically going to benefit you. It's going to benefit them as a company. But you hit the nail on the head, because investing in yourself is important. People may think, oh, I might want to invest in a coach, but the coach is too expensive. But if you think about what the long-term outcomes could look like, imagine having a coach for 3 or 6 months and then getting promotion to a role that's paying you a 20% uplift in your salary, or getting a new job, in a different company that takes you to another level completely. And if you then look back, well, what was the investment that I placed in with that coach versus my return on that investment? It could be huge. But you're right, people often think about the cost first, but they're not thinking about the outcomes or where they want to get to. And if they start thinking about those outcomes and where they want to get to, then hopefully they'll find ways to invest in themselves and better themselves for the future.
Yeah, and it is, as we said again early on, you don't want to stop learning, and this is part of that. And if, again, folks, sorry that I'm doing this sales pitch, but I do feel that it's very important, because if you spend, whether it be $10, $100, $1,000, you have it with you all the time, and you can go back and refer back to it, and maybe you miss something, but it is an investment in time and financially for yourself. With that being said, thanks for listening. And if you've enjoyed this podcast so far, please remember to like, share, and comment. It helps with the algorithm, and we would love to be able to bring you more guests. Thanks. Are you ready to do this little bit of this rapid fire round? It's
All right, I'll try.
so I want to ask you, what's one belief that you've let go of?
The one belief that I've let go of is telling myself that I'm not good enough to be in the same room.
Okay, fair enough. Now, what's a book or quote that's um, always lifts you up?
Whew, that's a tough one. One of the quotes that I always think about, particularly with all of this mindset stuff, and it's in the book, is it's a quote by originally by Marcus Garvey, but sung by Bob Marley, a reggae singer, and it is emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. So basically, what that message is the mental slavery is something that we put upon ourselves. So lacking ability, lacking confidence, we are putting that in our own minds, and the only way we can get over that is we have to free our minds ourselves. So no one else
Wow.
can do it for you. You have to do it yourself. So I always think about that as a comment and what it actually means. I used to hear that song all the time, but never really clicked as to what those powerful words meant. So yeah.
Well, that answer may have already answered this next question because I was going to ask what your favorite song or one of the songs that really has meaning to you.
Oh, Chuck, I've got such an eclectic taste in music, different genres, and I don't
Mike,
think there's ever one.
one.
But if I was to say one song that would always kind of get me, I'll Always Love My Mama was a song. It's an old soul record, and I can't remember the group that sang it, but it was on the Sound of Philadelphia album. But it just reminded me of not just growing up as a kid, but loving my mum who's no longer with us. But the way she would discipline us if we needed disciplining, but all out of love. And that song, I mean, it's quite a long song, but the words just always resonate with me in that way. And every time I hear it, I think of her. So
I guess we're gonna all have to look that one up, and then got just two more quick ones for you,
yeah,
and they don't have to be your favorites or anything like that, but a movie, a go-to movie or movie that you've really enjoyed.
Shawshank Redemption.
That was quick.
Love that movie.
Okay,
Yeah, I again, there's so many, but that one is one I could always watch.
and then here's the last one: a car, a dream car, or a favorite car.
Whew. I would say the Bentley Coupe, Bentley Continental GT, basically. Just love, just love those cars.
Should I ask how and why you got to that Bentley?
No, I've always loved them. Always loved those cars as they just look so elegant on the road.
And I'll tell you the reason I asked the movie, the song, the car is I think sometimes those things will tell somebody's personality.
Oh, what did you
Of
work out then?
well, you answered about the elegance, and it's just you want to be on the right side. You want to do things fair. That's that elegance, eloquent part for me. And you're a family guy, but you love your mom. And those are all fantastic traits.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, a good upbringing, I would
Mike,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I want to say this has been fun. I know it's a serious topic, but not the serious point where it's like life and death. Although it could be in a way because of your performance and your career. But this has been very helpful for me, and I hope for the audience. So thank you very much for your time today, especially since you're not here in the continental U.S. You're not here in the
Yeah.
America.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. And honestly, I know regardless of everything that's going on in America at the moment, it's always been a country I've loved to visit. I've been there so many times, so many different states with either holidays or with jobs that I've had. So yeah, it's a real pleasure to speak to your listeners, and I hope they enjoyed the conversation.
I I can't guarantee anything, but I'm going to say I know that majority of them
Excellent.
got a lot out of this.
Well,
Again,
hopefully they'll
Mike,
go out and they'll buy my book, Mindset Unlocked.
that's right. Invest in yourself.
There you go.
Mindset unlocked. Amazon is the place to go.
That's the play.
Mike Seeley, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chuck. It's been a real pleasure.